Because after part 2, didn't you want to see another one?
Things just seemed to fall apart after that.
A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 Dream Warriors tells the story of Kristen, or Kirsten.
Kirsten?
That was the original name of the character, and I guess the editor forgot.
I can see that.
Played by Patricia Arquette, who begins struggling with nightmares of Freddy Krueger, again played by Robert Englund. He then frames her for a suicide attempt, Jesus,
Oh, God.
causing her to be sent to a psychiatric unit with a bunch of other suicidal teens monitored by a baby-faced Lawrence Fishburne, who are all struggling with the same nightmares of Krueger himself. Eventually Nancy returns, once again played by Heather Langenkamp, who died in the original film,
Got better.
to try to help the kids and stop Freddy once and for all.
Why, thank you.
Well, after part 2 was a giant part poo, New Line thought maybe we should stop this franchise. Wes Craven himself never wanted a continuation and had no involvement in the second film, refusing to allow it to become an entire series. However, part 2 was so shit, it quite literally convinced Craven to sign on to write the third one. Kind of impressive. The initial idea was for part 3 to end the series. Even though they had a cliffhanger ending to close the movie out, but okay.
Don't hold your breath.
But Craven wasn't available to direct as he was busy shooting Deadly Friend at the time, so the director's chair was instead given to Chuck Russell. The initial idea was to have Freddy invade the real world, haunting the film set of the studio producing a new Nightmare on Elm Street movie. However, New Line hated the meta-cinematic idea and rejected it, though Craven would later get his wish with another movie later on in the franchise.
Thanks.
In addition, both John Saxon and Robert Englund himself submitted their own scripts for consideration. Saxon's was a prequel in which Freddy was revealed to actually be innocent of his supposed crimes and was set up by Charles Manson and the Manson family. Really not sure how I feel about that.
Screw you.
But once he is wrongfully murdered by the mob of angry parents, he seeks
Revenge!
against their children. England's script, on the other hand, focused on the sister of Tina from the original movie who investigates her murder. It then leads to Krueger setting up the house with booby traps in the dream world, much like Nancy did in the original. However, neither of these ideas ended up being used, and Craven instead decided that the story should have Freddy against a group rather than just one person, as he has now become far too strong for that. He also originally planned to have Freddy entice the kids to separate locations to commit suicide, but as this was such a taboo social issue at the time, this was dropped. But some elements remained.
They won't let me have a knife. I might,
And the 80s were wild, and people's reactions to suicide attempts in this movie are ridiculous.
I know my own daughter. She's just trying to get some attention, that's all, and I'm not going to play one of her little games with her.
And this one works with the mentally ill.
Philip killed himself. Now that's a cowardly thing. That's an empty thing. He let himself down. He let all of us down.
The 80s.
I love you too.
Craven's original script was also much darker before they went back and added in some humour, creating the dark comedy style that would later become synonymous with the franchise and lead character. Though Craven would later claim that 70% of his script was rewritten, so he eventually had very little to do with the final product. Oh, during production, fans of the series actually snuck on set and stole the Freddy gloves. That's nice.
Talking about.
A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 Dream Warriors was released on January the 1st, 1987. Happy New Year! And earned $44.7 million worldwide, making it the highest grossing movie for the studio that year and the third highest grossing in the franchise. However, reviews were mixed, some regarding it as a welcome return to form for the series, while others saw it as nothing more than a cash grab, existing only to prolong the franchise for further sequels. Roger Ebert in particular wasn't a fan, criticising the movie for supposedly prioritising the special effects over fleshing out its characters. Make a list of your favourite horror films from Nosferatu to The Exorcist and you'll remember the people who were involved. In A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, I never felt that sympathy. All the characters seem adrift in a machine-made script, a script devised as a series of pegs to hang the special effects on. It's a bunch of suicidal teenagers! How do you not have sympathy? You're sick! The film would also end up being banned in Queensland, Australia due to its references to drugs regarding a scene where Freddy syringes a recovering drug addict to death. However, over the years, the movie's critical standing began to improve, people often regarding it as one of the series' best installments and a worthy follow-up to the original film.
Mom, I'm still having those awful dreams.
My brother was WCW champion.
Hi, what's your name?
You know, why is it that little girls in horror movies are just absurdly creepy even when they're not saying anything remotely scary?
This is where it takes us.
Okay, this is fucked up.
Freddy's home.
Okay, I think the series is back on form. Go back to whipping butts with towels. Wait, no! We do get the cliche of the person waking up only to still be dreaming, but it's a good one. And Freddy's first appearance is awesome. Strangely, this doctor spots a nun who we later find out is actually Freddy's mother, but how is he seeing her? He's awake.
What faith do you follow?
Science, I suppose.
Oh, they don't like that.
Sad choice.
See? But whenever she appears, she quickly vanishes. She's dead, so I'm guessing she's a ghost, but she only ever appears to this one dude. It's weird. Oh shit, Jigsaw's here. Must be a crossover. Although the scene is really creepy until a giant Freddy worm appears to try to eat her. Funnily enough, originally they thought that this worm looked far too much like a penis, so they had to quickly cover it in goo before filming, but it still looks ridiculous, and so does a lot of the stop motion. It just looks awful. It looks like a Sega Saturn video game. In fact, a lot of the effects look cheesy as hell. It also turns out that Kristen has a special ability of pulling people into her dreams against their will. Never explained how she does this. But then later on, the rest of the group very quickly learn how to do it like it's nothing. What the hell? Although it is a pretty cool moment when Freddy sees Nancy again for the first time. Weirdly, none of the adults seem to think that it's a bit weird that all of these kids are having the exact same dreams about the exact same killer at the exact same time.
The fact that we all dreamt about this guy before we ever met doesn't seem to impress anybody.
As for the other characters, there's a handicapped guy called Will, a mute guy called Joey, a token black guy called Kincaid, who is literally the token black guy.
He couldn't hack it, so he got nailed. He wasn't strong enough, so he got wasted. That's all. Let's go kick the motherfucker's ass all over Dreamland. Later, how much more you gonna keep throwing smoke up our ass? Anybody tries drugs on me, get his ass kicked.
Calm down, mate. You're not Stallone. You're like 12. Strangely, the actor didn't actually want to try out for the movie, but his agent forced him. On his way there, he had to walk in heavy rain to catch a bus, and by the time he arrived, he was drenched and still had to wait for hours before being seen. He angrily yelled at the director, "Fuck you," which ended up getting him the part. Was he just kidnapped and forced to be in a movie?
Fuck off!
We do see, in my view, the best kill in the entire series, as Freddy takes over a guy who is known for sleepwalking, rips the veins out of his arms and legs, and walks him off a tower to look like suicide. It is horrifically evil. And I know Will can't walk, but to send Joey who can't talk to get help is pretty amusing. And despite these all being brand new characters, it is a pretty tragic moment the following morning as they all try to come to terms with his death. Weirdly, they do establish that these characters are teenagers, and yet this adult is clearly hitting on one of them. We do get another insane kill where Freddy delivers not one, but two amazing one-liners.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. Welcome to prime time, bitch.
This was all because Robert Englund improvised lines and the director genuinely couldn't decide which one he liked better, so he included both. Oh, and the adults still rule this down as suicide.
In the last 4 days, we've had 2 suicides.
Yes, she shoved her face into a fucking TV.
You are the last of the Elm Street children.
And yet we're still going to bust out 3 more after this. And a remake. And a TV show. The movie does have a cool addition where the kids realise in the dream world they can have any powers they, well, dream of. How do the other movies not think of doing this? Joey is tricked into trying to pork a nurse and his boner gets him in a coma. Not sure why Freddy doesn't just kill him. I mean, you could argue that he wants to lure the kids to the dream world, but why? He was already picking them apart one by one. He didn't really need to lure them anywhere. He was doing alright.
Let go of him, you bastard. Oh my god.
Okay, who cares? That was fucking terrifying. The movie also capitalised on the trend at the time of having a slasher sequel make up a rule to end the franchise once and for all. Yeah, it turns out they have to find Freddy's remains and bury them in hallowed ground. This bitch, Miss Sims, is the skeptic who doubts the kid's claims, but I just love how an hour in after them constantly telling her about this killer and then them turning up mysteriously dead, and she's still confused by their warnings.
You stupid bitch! You're killing! You're killing us!
I'm sure it's nothing. Nancy pays a visit to her father, which is a nice throwback, but he refuses to tell her where Freddy's remains are at first. Not sure why, it literally doesn't affect him or his life whatsoever, the prick.
Can I say goodbye to the others?
I don't know.
It'll be my last chance.
Okay, you got 5 minutes. They're in the TV room.
I don't think that edit is supposed to be funny, but it's brilliant. It is pretty cool as they use their dream powers against Freddy, and the syringe death is so messed up. If only she used her dream powers to think up something a bit more useful than just small knives.
My weakness, it's small knives.
And somehow Will becoming a wizard against Freddy is so ridiculous yet awesome, and it works within this film's story. But it's a good thing that this junkyard containing Freddy's remains was never disturbed after all these years. You know, considering this is Dreamland and they can have any powers they want, you'd think that Nancy would choose to be a little bit stronger. But then Freddy can now somehow enter the real world at will. But then why the fuck does he even need the dream world? What the hell is this shit? Where did this come from? Even in part 2 he needed a vessel to invade the real world. Although fair play, I didn't see it coming when he killed Nancy's dad. All that? Jesus!
Got better.
Weirdly, Joey finally screams and freaks out Freddy and everyone thinks that's it. Yeah, somehow Joey just shouting kills Freddy Krueger. The movie doesn't always add up, but honestly, in a way, I think it's superior to the original film. The kills are certainly more creative, and I think the movie does a great job making you care about the characters. It's a great slasher film and a huge step up from its predecessor. It looks like the Elm Street franchise is finally back on track.